Richard Kastelein, because Richard Kastelein has a fantastic site, Blockchain-News. Richard, you can already come up. And it's all the news about blockchain. It appears on his website, and he's extremely involved in all these initial coin offerings. I mean, when I first talked to him, he said, "You need to know what's happening now. This is really interesting." And that was, about 7 months ago. And after that, a whole string of very, very interesting initial coin offering came. So we're going to talk about that. So Richard, thank you very much.
Thank you.
His wife is having his birthday today, and he said, "I don't know if she allows me to come." So that's really wonderful. Yeah.
She's Gronings as well, so from Groningen.
Yeah, you're Canadian?
Happy. Yeah, I'm originally from Vancouver, where Mark's now living. It's like we swapped countries. But I've been living in Groningen for a few years, and I run a website called Blockchain News at the-blockchain.com. That's how I started. A couple of years ago, I saw a niche. I was researching blockchain, and I couldn't find any websites that were talking about what Satoshi gave the world in terms of technology being used in other markets, such as health and energy. So I decided to focus strictly on that, not so much cryptocurrency. But then I started writing about startups, and then ICOs started coming to me and wanting to advertise because I was writing about startups, and I was like, what's all this stuff about? Gee, they got lots of money, they're advertising. So I wrote for 7 months and didn't make any money at all. It was like a labor of love, but I also learned a lot. And then I started getting involved with ICOs earlier this year. So.
Yeah, and they basically went up quite a bit. I mean, if you look at this, how fast has this gone up?
I mean, you can see it started with Mastercoin a long time ago, and you can see Ethereum, the big one there.
First, what the hell is an ICO? Okay? Some people don't know it yet.
An ICO is an initial coin offering. And we're actually trying to stop using that word because it sounds too much like the SEC and securities regulatory system.
If you want to be regulated, you're making a coin.
Token sales is also acceptable. Initial token offerings, and we don't call them investors, we call them participants and things like that. So we're trying to change the language a little bit away from it sounding so much like securities. An ICO is basically a project normally that's around blockchain where we issue a cryptocurrency and invite people to come and invest in that cryptocurrency based on, and create a network value.
So you have Ethereum, you have a contract. The contract is basically, here's a new coin. Everybody can do that now in 2 minutes. And then we have a new coin, and we're going to use that coin for a particular purpose.
Right. Sometimes it has utility, what we call utility value. Yeah. So that means the coin actually does something. Sometimes it doesn't. I mean, some of these don't even have any utility value.
You have a Richard Kastelein coin.
Dogecoin. Right?
Yeah, Dogecoin.
It's just a coin. That's all it is. It's a fad. So it has really no utility value at all.
No, but I mean the ones which raise all these 20, 30, 50, 100 million.
They have some utility value. It's very dangerous to do an ICO and promise equity or derivatives or profit sharing, because then you're treading on the ground of like dealing with regulators and becoming a security. So the coin has to do something else. So for instance, I'm working on an energy coin now where it's pegged to a kilowatt hour. So that's the utility value there is that if you buy into this coin now, and these services come to your community, you may never pay for energy again in the future. Something like that, because you've invested early into that coin. And right now it may cost 1 coin for 1 kilowatt hour, but in 5 years it may cost it's like the Bitcoin pizza costing 10,000 Bitcoin, right? It may cost 0.0000 for 1 kilowatt hour, or 0.1 or whatever.
Yeah. And so it sounds like a good deal. And then, but one of the more credible versions. I mean, you had the advertising, the bets, I think it's called, from the guy who started Firefox and Blast is I think the name of the company.
Yeah, that was quite. You're talking about the Mozilla project. That was called Batcoin. Or BAT. Yeah.
BAT, and they raised 35 million in 24 seconds.
Yeah, but that's chump change now. That's nothing now. Yesterday we had.
But I mean that's still it almost killed Ether. I mean. 2 days was Ethereum had huge problems to get.
Well, they had headaches. We just had an ICO yesterday that raised 250 million, which has got everybody kind of absolutely. I was involved with Bancor the week before, which raised 150 million for probably a more legitimate project, I think. So it's really getting a bit crazy. Most people can't even actually get in. Like I have friends that are cryptocurrency investors that tried 20 times to get in on the status.im investment yesterday. They couldn't get in.
So only you raised 250 million and only 5% of the people which wanted to buy it Could get it.
I don't know what the percentages are,
Yeah.
but you know, think about it. They're holding all these reserves in Ethereum as well. So they've got $250 million worth of Ethereum. And what happens when Ethereum keeps going up or doubles or triples? Then they're like $1 billion. They've got $1 billion in capital. And like Mark was saying, well, what happens if they start cashing that in? What can happen to the markets? But I think that's just a challenge that anybody who holds a lot of Bitcoin, even we call them Bitcoin whales. There's 1,000 people that own half the market cap in Bitcoin, by the way. So it's quite concentrated, the wealth. We call them whales in our business. And they're the ones you always want to get in the ICOs. A lot of people do, because they'll come in and drop. I think a Bitcoin whale dropped 25 million into Bancor, for instance. So
yeah, and Bancor is really interesting. Well, can you explain quickly what Bancor does?
I can't explain it quickly because it's quite complicated.
Well, okay. Then, the way I would say it, Bancor is a way that all the cryptocurrencies have a guaranteed value, that they can be very easily exchanged among each other.
They have a reserve bank, basically.
Yeah.
Then
a reserve bank also doesn't worry anybody if you call that you have a reserve bank.
It's quite centralized in some respects.
Yeah.
And it's quite controversial. I mean, I'm hearing people talk about overvaluation and all these problems and failures. And, you know, but the fact of the matter is 9 out of 10 investments in Silicon Valley, or startups, I wouldn't say investments, are failing anyway. So if 9 out of 10 fail in our world, then we're looking, you know, we're still looking at, you know, not all these projects are going to make it. Okay. But I'll tell you what I love most about ICOs and what fundamentally differentiates them for me. How many people are involved in open source software here or have ever been? You know, it's a lot of work, right? You know, the only currency we ever had, I used to laugh in the early 2000s, was ego. It's like you build something cool and people use it, man. That's great, you know. But now, actually, these ICOs are open sourcing their software. They're being formed under foundations, not corporate structures. Switzerland and Singapore are the two domicile countries right now that recognize token activities, let's say, and have a regulatory environment for that. I think Luxembourg is next, Liechtenstein, and we're going to see more countries that want to facilitate this because they want fintech. They want to see this growth. Americans, right now, we're doing the ICOs, we're like IP blocking America. It's like, we don't want you. No Americans, please, because everybody's scared of the SEC. And, you know, the fact is I went to Silicon Valley, and they're losing out. China's saying, okay, we're going to let ICOs go.
You went to Silicon Valley and explained the venture capital community.
Yeah, I was at...
Let me explain to you what ICOs were. So,
Well,
so how did that go?
Well, I wrote a piece in Harvard Business Review about 3 months ago, and then it got picked up by someone there. They invited me to come over. And it was interesting. I mean, Draper's got all his minions running around. They understand it. But a lot of people in the room didn't. And it was really quite interesting how you could feel like some tension even with some of the crowd, like having a go at me. You know, this is all bullshit. You know, it's like overvaluated, and you know, well, they have no skin in the game. Do I blame them? The only upside for venture capitalists in this game is that they got liquidity. Okay, because you're not banking. You know, you don't have 100 million sitting in there in a company waiting to do an IPO or get an acquisition in the next 2 years. And
okay, so you had a warm reception. I can say that.
It was fairly warm.
Yeah, I can imagine that. So what Mark said, you know, at the moment it's completely nuts. Anybody who writes a white paper says we're having a coin. We're going to make this coin very usable because you can pay for advertising or you can do for this, and then they raise a lot of money. How long will this beautiful... I'm going to tell you something that I think that how long will it take? Some people don't realize, but because we've had a few scams already in this community, and I even talked to someone today that walked away from it for 2 years, from this, and he bought in at Ethereum for 20 cents. Because there were scams in the earlier days, our community really just ganged up. I mean, you'll see when an ICO gets announced at Bitcoin Talk, it all gets announced on this stupid web forum still. And the pack dogs come in, and they start Googling. I mean, forget about this due diligence process from a VC in New York with a kid out of school with an MBA given this mighty task. No, we put the pack dogs in, and they go in there and they beat them up, and they Google the pictures. They're dragging, oh, this picture's fake, this LinkedIn profile. Look, who's on the code audit team? We don't know this guy. Who's on the tech team? We don't know him. So you're making your own. Your own process to basically check these investments out.
Here's exactly what we're doing. We're crowdsourcing our due diligence. Mm-hmm. And we also have third-party organizations like Smith & Crown, ICO Rating, that are doing really good work in analyzing ICOs and giving a thumbs up or thumbs down or a rating. So you have to be pretty much a complete idiot if you don't, if you're not, okay, going into the forums is one thing, but if you're not looking at Smith & Crown or you're not looking at ICO rating, I would even say go into the forums where they're talking about these products, because all the ICOs announced there, and then you start getting all the comments.
Okay. Where can I find all the information about the coming up?
BitcoinTalk.org. I hate to send people there, but it's a nightmare. I mean, it's a web forum, so it's really not the right place to do this.
No, but I mean, you make it easy on your website to basically come up with the essential news, right? Or are you only talking about the stuff you invest in?
I'm doing a lot of ICO press now because that's the space I've moved into. So I have a company called CryptoAssets. Not a company, actually. We're going to do a DAO, but we're a group of people that are all over the world. And we're working on some very interesting projects, including Hollywood's independent studio who's had 70 Academy Award nominations, and we're doing independent films. So there's we're starting to branch out from blockchain now. It's always blockchain projects, but now we can move into other verticals, and I think that's going to be very interesting when we start looking at other things that we can raise money for.
So what we can do. Thank you very much, Richard.
Thank you.
Can I make my own coin? My big blockchain. No, the blockchain innovation conference coin, and then everybody can pay 10 million, and basically make them trade, and then we'll make millionaires out of them, and next year we'll have a much better conference.
You could do that, sure.
Okay, and we'll have the help of the best guy. Thank you very much, Richard Kastelein.